A little girl's voice shattered the royal procession. Not a scream, not a plea for food, a single question spoken so softly that every wolf in the capital fell silent. "Your Majesty, why did you abandon the Luna the moon goddess chose for you?" The silver trumpets stopped. The royal horses refused to take another step. Thousands of spectators lining the streets stared toward the ragged child, kneeling in the snow with a wounded wolf pup wrapped inside her torn cloak. At the front of the procession, Alpha King Cassian Blackthorn slowly turned in his saddle. His golden eyes met hers. The entire continent had gathered for this day. Within 1 hour, the sacred moon altar would bind Cassian to warrior Luna Valeria Stormfang before every Alpha Kingdom. Once the ceremony began, the ancient vow could never be broken without plunging the royal bloodlines into chaos and civil war. The kingdom had exactly 60 minutes before destiny became irreversible. Before we discover how one starving orphan forced an entire continent to question everything it believed about fate. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you are listening from today. Your support helps these stories reach everyone who still believes compassion can change destiny. Now, let us return to the moment that stopped a kingdom. The little girl lifted her eyes once more. "I know her name." A murmur swept through the crowd. Even the high elders turned pale. The child whispered only one word, "Eliana." High Elder Malak staggered backward as though struck by invisible claws. Cassian's heartbeat thundered inside his chest. He had never heard that name before. Yet somewhere deep within his soul, his wolf suddenly awakened. No one in the capital knew where Eliana lived. That was exactly how she intended it. Far beyond the marble palaces, beyond the prosperous trading roads, and beyond the guarded borders of the royal territories, a forgotten village rested beneath endless pine forests where winter never seemed to loosen its grip. Its name had disappeared from most maps decades ago. Travelers avoided it, merchants ignored it. Even wandering wolves rarely crossed its lonely hills. To the outside world, it was simply another dying settlement where poverty quietly erased lives one season at a time. To abandoned children, it was home. Every morning before sunrise, Eliana stepped into the frozen forest carrying an old woven basket across her shoulder. Inside rested nothing more than a small loaf of coarse bread, dried herbs, a weathered sewing kit, and a worn journal filled with names. Not royal names, not noble bloodlines, only children. Every page recorded another young wolf she had rescued. Another child who had survived because someone had chosen mercy instead of fear. Some entries carried only first names. Others held no names at all. Beside those, Eliana simply wrote where they had been found, near the eastern river. Outside the burned monastery, hidden beneath an abandoned wagon, sleeping beside a fallen she-wolf. She remembered every face, even those who had stayed only one night before, continuing towards safer kingdoms. A cold wind swept across the clearing as she reached a small stone cottage resting beneath towering cedar trees. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. Tiny footprints surrounded the entrance. Before she opened the door, laughter escaped from inside. Real laughter, the kind rarely heard anywhere touched by war. Eliana smiled. Inside waited 14 children. Some were barely old enough to walk. Others had already learned to hunt. None shared the same family. None shared the same kingdom. Yet every one of them called her by the same name. "Miss Eliana." Several children ran toward her immediately. A little girl proudly held up a knitted scarf she had finished overnight. A pair of young brothers eagerly displayed the fish they had caught beneath the frozen stream. The smallest child clung quietly to Eliana's skirt, refusing to let go. She greeted each one with the same gentle warmth. No child waited longer than a few seconds for her attention. No child felt invisible. Breakfast was simple. Fresh soup made from root vegetables, homemade bread, wild berries preserved during autumn. The portions remained small. Eliana always served herself last. Sometimes, there was nothing left. The older children noticed. They quietly pretended to be full so the younger ones could eat more. Eliana noticed that too. She never allowed guilt to enter the room. Instead, she smiled. We share, and tomorrow we gather more. Hope had become their daily routine, not because life was easy, because kindness had become stronger than hunger. After breakfast, Eliana spent the morning mending torn coats beside the fireplace. Her fingers bore countless tiny scars from years of sewing, chopping firewood, collecting herbs, and carrying frightened children through snowstorms. None of those scars had come from battle. They came from service. Outside, an elderly villager slowly approached the cottage carrying a small sack of potatoes. Old Thomas removed his cap respectfully. I found these. You should keep them, Eliana answered gently. You need them more. The old man shook his head. No. My grandchildren are alive because you found them before the raiders did. His voice trembled. You have already given us far more than this. Eliana accepted the potatoes, only after promising half would be shared with another struggling family. That was how every gift worked. Nothing belonged to one person for long. By afternoon, she walked through the village checking on the elderly, repairing broken fences, changing bandages, and delivering warm meals. No payment was ever requested. Few people even realized how much she quietly accomplished before sunset each day. Many believed she was simply a kind woman. Only a handful knew the truth. Years earlier, High Alpha Darius Ironclaw had ruled Ash Hollow with ruthless cruelty. Eliana had once lived there, not as a respected Luna, not even as an ordinary citizen. She had been treated as little more than unpaid labor inside the Alpha household. Every mistake brought punishment. Every act of compassion invited suspicion. When she secretly shared food with abandoned wolf children, Darius declared her weak. When she refused to reveal where the children had been hidden, she was beaten until she could barely stand. Eventually, one stormy night, she escaped carrying 2 frightened toddlers through freezing rain. She never returned. The children survived. That was enough. As evening settled across the village, Mira arrived at the cottage carrying the wounded wolf pup she never left behind. The little girl's cheeks were red from the cold. I saw soldiers today. Eliana's smile faded. Where? Near the southern bridge. They asked about missing children. Several older boys immediately looked toward the windows. Fear quietly entered the room. Eliana remained calm. We stay together. No one travels alone. The children nodded. They trusted her completely. Long after everyone had fallen asleep, Eliana sat alone beside the fireplace. She opened her worn journal once more. Tucked carefully between its pages rested a brittle piece of parchment she had carried for years. The faded writing had nearly disappeared. Only one sentence remained clearly visible. When the moon's forgotten heart is finally spoken by an innocent voice, the true queen shall rise, and every hidden child shall stand beneath one sky. Eliana closed the journal immediately. She had never told anyone about the prophecy, not because she doubted it, because she feared it. Outside, far beyond the village, a pair of crimson eyes watched the cottage from the darkness between the trees. The rider quietly turned his horse. Without making a sound, he disappeared into the forest. Hidden beneath his black cloak, The crimson emblem of the Brotherhood of the Black Eclipse reflected faintly beneath the moonlight. The hunt had already begun. The wolves refused to enter the village, not because they were afraid, because they were waiting. Dozens of royal trackers stood frozen beneath towering pines, while their massive wolves remained motionless beyond the first weathered fence. They lowered their heads, their ears pressed flat, as though standing before sacred ground no ordinary alpha had the right to disturb. Captain Orion tightened his grip on the reins. "Your Majesty," Cassian never looked away from the quiet village ahead. "What is it?" "The wolves. They will not move." Cassian slowly dismounted. The ancient silence unsettled him more than any battlefield ever had. The entire journey from the capital had been filled with impossible signs. The orphan girl, Mira, had disappeared before anyone could question her. Every witness pointed toward this forgotten village. Every elder begged him to abandon the search. Every instinct inside his own wolf demanded the opposite. Only 48 hours remained before the moon altar ceremony could no longer be postponed. Noble houses were already threatening rebellion. Neighboring kingdoms demanded answers. If Cassian failed to return soon, the fragile peace holding the continent together would begin to fracture. Yet somehow, nothing seemed more important than discovering why one starving child had whispered a single forgotten name. Before destiny reveals the woman hidden from an entire kingdom, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you are listening from today. Your support helps these stories reach everyone who believes kindness can change history. Now let us continue. Cassian crossed the old wooden bridge alone. No guards, no banners, no royal ceremony. Only fresh snow crunching beneath his boots. The village appeared almost abandoned. Tiny cottages leaned beneath heavy blankets of snow. Smoke curled gently from stone chimneys. Children's laughter drifted through the cold air. It sounded peaceful. A strange feeling settled inside his chest. He had visited hundreds of villages as king. None had ever felt like this. An elderly woman carrying a basket paused when she recognized the royal crest upon his cloak. She bowed respectfully. "Welcome, Your Majesty." Cassian returned the gesture with quiet courtesy. "I seek someone named Eliana." The old woman's expression softened. "You found her?" Cassian frowned. "I have?" She smiled toward a narrow footpath leading into the woods. "She is where she always is." With the children, the king followed the path. The farther he walked, the quieter the world became. Birdsong faded. The wind slowed. Even the falling snow seemed reluctant to touch the earth. Then, he heard it, laughter, not one child. Cassian stepped through a line of cedar trees. The clearing stole his breath. More than a dozen children played together beneath towering pines. Some built tiny snow wolves, others chased one another through fresh powder. A little girl carefully wrapped a scarf around an injured wolf pup. No fear, no hunger, only warmth. At the center of them all, a woman knelt beside a young boy, gently stitching the torn sleeve of his coat. Her dress was simple, her boots were worn. Loose strands of chestnut-brown hair escaped beneath a faded blue shawl. She looked nothing like the queen the continent expected. She looked ordinary. Then she smiled at the child. The world stopped. Cassian felt something strike him with invisible force. A sudden surge of heat raced through every vein in his body. Electricity exploded beneath his skin. His heartbeat doubled, then doubled again. His wolf erupted awake, not with rage, with recognition. A deep, primal purr vibrated through his chest before he could suppress it. He staggered backward. Impossible the scent. Fresh snowfall, wild lavender, cedar after rain, moonflowers blooming beneath midnight skies. It wrapped around him with overwhelming gentleness. Every instinct inside him screamed the same truth, mate. His knees nearly gave way. The ancient bond he had believed absent his entire life awakened in a single heartbeat. Across the clearing, Eliana suddenly froze. The needle slipped from her fingers. She slowly stood. Her breathing became uneven. Without understanding why, she turned. Her silver-blue eyes met Cassian's. The same invisible current rushed through her body. Warmth flooded her heart. Her pulse echoed inside her ears. The world blurred. She whispered almost unconsciously, "No." Cassian took one hesitant step forward. His voice barely existed. Eliana. She had never seen the Alpha King before. Yet hearing him speak her name felt strangely familiar. Like remembering a dream she had carried since childhood, the children noticed first. Little Noah looked between them. "Miss Eliana, why is the king's wolf purring?" The clearing became silent. Captain Orion arrived moments later with the royal guards. Every warrior immediately sensed it. The air itself had changed. Ancient silver light shimmered faintly around Cassian and Eliana. High Elder Malik appeared behind the soldiers. The moment he saw them standing together, his face lost all color. "It cannot be." He stumbled backward. "The bond. It survived." Valeria Stormfang arrived shortly afterward, still wearing the ceremonial armor prepared for her engagement. She looked from Cassian to Eliana, then quietly closed her eyes. She felt it too, not jealousy, not truth. For years she had wondered why the sacred mate bond had never fully awakened between herself and Cassian. Now she understood. It had never belonged to her. Cassian slowly approached Eliana. Every step strengthened the invisible connection. His wolf no longer resisted. It leaned toward her completely. He stopped only a few feet away. "I do not understand." "Neither do I," Eliana whispered. Mira suddenly emerged from behind the children, still carrying her wounded wolf pup. She smiled through tired eyes. "I told you." "You forgot her." Cassian looked at the little girl. "I never knew she existed." Mira gently shook her head. "No. You forgot to look where the moon goddess was already working." Before anyone could answer, the earth trembled. A deep rumble echoed beneath the forest. Ancient stone cracked somewhere beyond the trees. Silver light burst upward into the winter sky. Every wolf surrounding the village immediately fell onto one knee, not in fear, in reverence. High Elder Malik whispered in horror, "The sanctuary. It has awakened, hidden beneath the oldest mountain on the continent." The temple of the first moon slowly opened for the first time in nearly 1,000 years. Only one event in recorded history had ever awakened it. The reunion of the true Alpha King and his destined Luna. Far away, inside the fortress of Ash Hollow, High Alpha Darius Ironclaw stood before a black crystal altar. The surface suddenly fractured. A silver crescent appeared across its center. Darius stared at it in silence, then smiled. "So, finally found each other." His expression darkened. "Prepare the Brotherhood. This time, we kill the Luna before the moon can crown her." Outside his fortress, thousands of armored wolves began gathering beneath banners as black as a moonless night. The hunt was no longer for a hidden woman. It was for the future queen of every kingdom. The first child screamed before anyone saw the assassins. A frightened cry pierced the frozen valley, then silence, not because the danger had passed, because every bird abandoned the forest at once. Hundreds of wings erupted into the pale morning sky. Captain Orion's hand flew to his sword. "Protect the children!" the command echoed across the clearing. Royal guards rushed forward. Village fathers grabbed axes. Older boys pulled the younger children behind the cottages. Eliana instinctively gathered the smallest wolf pups into her arms. Cassian stepped between her and the tree line. His golden eyes narrowed. "They're here," the forest exploded. Black-cloaked warriors burst through the snow-covered pines from every direction. No battle cries, no warnings, only disciplined silence. The Brotherhood of the Black Eclipse. More than 200 assassins, each moved with unnatural speed. Each carried silver chains forged to suppress Aluna's power without spilling unnecessary blood. They had not come to conquer, they had come to capture. Behind them rode High Alpha Darius Ironclaw. His enormous black wolf stalked beside his horse like a living nightmare. The scar across Darius's face twisted as he smiled. "There she is," his voice rolled across the clearing. "The weak little servant." Eliana lowered her eyes for only a heartbeat. Old memories crashed into her. Cold stone floors, empty dinner bowls, bruised hands, long nights hiding frightened children beneath broken floorboards while Darius's soldiers searched every room. "You cannot save everyone," he had always told her. Today, she looked directly at him. "No, but I can save the next one." Darius laughed. "Still pretending kindness matters?" He pointed toward the children. "Take every child. Kill anyone who resists." The Brotherhood surged forward. Cassian moved first. One step, the earth cracked. A second step. Snow erupted outward in a widening circle. By the third, the Alpha King vanished. The nearest assassin never saw him arrive. A single strike shattered the attacker's enchanted chains. Another strike sent 3 more crashing through frozen cedar trunks. The clearing erupted into chaos. Steel clashed. Magic flashed. Children cried. Warriors roared. Yet through every sound, Cassian heard only one heartbeat. Eliana's. He would not allow it to stop. Captain Orion rallied the royal guard. Shield formation. Tower shields locked together around the children. Village hunters filled every gap with hunting spears. No child stood alone. Mira hugged her injured wolf pup tightly. She looked toward Eliana. "I'm not afraid," Eliana smiled, despite the battle raging around them. "I know. Stay behind me." Before Mira could answer, an assassin leaped over the shield wall. His blade descended toward the little girl. Time seemed to freeze. Eliana stepped forward without thinking. She did not carry a weapon. She did not possess legendary combat skills. She simply reached for the child. The blade stopped inches from her shoulder. Not because the assassin hesitated, because Cassian caught the weapon with his bare hand. Blood streamed across his fingers. His eyes never left Eliana. "Did he hurt you?" She stared at the blood. "You caught a blade," Cassian answered quietly. "I would catch 1,000. A low growl rolled from deep inside his chest. Not anger, instinct. His wolf refused to permit harm near its mate. The ancient mate bond intensified. Invisible energy burst outward. Every wolf in the valley lifted its head simultaneously. The air vibrated. Blue lightning danced across Cassian's arms. His amber eyes blazed like molten gold. High Elder Malik stumbled backward. The first Alpha Wrath. No, it cannot awaken. But it already had. Cassian raised one blood-stained hand. The wind stopped. Snowflakes froze in midair. Silence swallowed the battlefield. Every assassin suddenly found their feet rooted to the earth. Invisible force pressed upon them like an entire mountain. No spell, no illusion. Reality itself bent around the Alpha King. Darius's confident smile disappeared. "What have you become?" Cassian's voice remained calm. I remembered. The ground beneath the Brotherhood fractured. Ancient silver runes erupted through the snow. Great stone wolves, hidden beneath the mountain for centuries, slowly rose from the earth. Dozens, then hundreds. Each stood taller than a warhorse. Moonlight flowed through their translucent bodies, the guardian pack. Legends claimed they appeared only when the moon goddess judged an innocent life worthy of divine protection. The stone wolves did not attack. They simply walked between the assassins and the children. Every enemy blade crumbled into silver dust upon touching their glowing forms. Fear spread through the Brotherhood. One assassin dropped to his knees, another fled. A third threw away his weapon entirely. Even hardened killers understood. They were no longer fighting a kingdom. They were standing against an ancient covenant. Darius roared. "Cowards!" He shifted. Bones cracked. Muscles expanded. Within seconds, an enormous black wolf towered above the battlefield, twice the size of an ordinary alpha. His crimson eyes locked onto Eliana. "If I cannot take you, I will erase you," he lunged. Cassian intercepted him before he crossed half the distance. The collision shook the mountain. Trees splintered. Snow avalanches thundered down distant cliffs. The two alpha wolves tore across the valley with overwhelming force. Each impact echoed for miles. Neither yielded. Valeria Stormfang arrived with reinforcements from the capital. She surveyed the battlefield only once before drawing her twin moonsteel blades. An elder hurried toward her. "My lady, the king needs your protection." Valeria shook her head. "No. He already has the one he was always meant to protect." She turned instead toward the frightened children. "Defend the future." Royal warriors immediately followed her command. Together they formed a second defensive ring around Eliana and the orphans. At the center of that circle, little Noah tugged gently on Eliana's sleeve. "Miss Eliana, why are they trying to hurt us?" She knelt despite everything happening around her. "Because some people believe power is worth more than people." The little boy frowned. "Is it?" She smiled softly. "Look around." The children looked. Royal soldiers, village farmers, warrior lunas, ancient stone wolves. Even rival packs now fought side by side to protect strangers. No crown had commanded them, compassion had. Suddenly, Mira gasped. She pointed toward the mountains. "They're coming." Far beyond the battlefield, the horizon filled with silver, not snow, wolves. Thousands upon thousands of wolves descended from every direction. White, gray, black, golden. Each carried the crest of a different kingdom. None answered Cassian's call. None answered Valeria's. They answered something older, the awakening of the true Luna. High Elder Malak fell to both knees. His voice trembled. "The continent has chosen." Darius looked across the endless tide of arriving wolves. For the first time in decades, the ruthless Alpha understood the truth. He had not come to hunt one forgotten woman. He had declared war against the future itself. The valley became silent, not because the battle had ended, because every warrior realized they were witnessing the final choice between fear and compassion. Thousands of wolves stood motionless beneath the falling snow. The armies no longer faced one another. They faced themselves. High Alpha Darius slowly rose from the shattered earth, blood staining the black fur along his shoulder before he shifted back into human form. His breathing was heavy. His armor lay in broken pieces around him. Yet hatred still burned inside his eyes. He pointed toward Eliana. She made you weak. Cassian calmly wiped the blood from his hand where he had caught the assassin's blade. No. Looked toward the frightened children gathered behind the royal shield wall. She taught me what strength actually protects. Darius laughed bitterly. A king who chooses orphans over power deserves to lose both. He reached beneath his ruined cloak and drew a crystal forged from forbidden moonstone. High Elder Malak's face drained of color, the eclipse heart. No! Darius crushed the crystal. Dark energy exploded across the valley. The sky dimmed. Snow turned black for a single terrifying heartbeat. Ancient chains of shadow burst from the ground, racing toward the children. Their purpose was not to kill. They were designed to steal the life force of every child carrying royal blood. The Brotherhood had planned this from the beginning. Cassian reacted instantly. So did Eliana. Without thinking about her own safety, she ran directly toward the children, not away from danger, toward it. She wrapped her arms around the smallest among them. Stay close. No one lets go. The shadow chains struck. Before they reached the children, brilliant silver light erupted from Eliana's body. Not violent, not destructive, gentle, warm. The light flowed around every frightened child like a mother's embrace. Each chain dissolved the moment it touched her radiance. The valley watched in stunned silence. Captain Orion whispered, "She has no battle magic." High Elder Malak slowly shook his head. No. She possesses something much older. The blessing of the first Luna. The light continued spreading. Wounded warriors from every kingdom felt their pain begin to fade. Broken shields repaired themselves. Frozen streams started flowing again. Even frightened horses stopped trembling. No one had ever seen power used this way, not to conquer, to heal. Valeria Stormfang lowered both swords. She walked slowly toward Eliana until she stood only a few feet away. The warrior Luna smiled. I spent my entire life believing a queen was the strongest fighter. She looked around the valley. I was wrong. She knelt, not before a throne, before kindness. Every warrior who had followed Valeria looked at one another. Then, one after another, they lowered their weapons. Their loyalty did not disappear. It simply found its rightful place. Darius roared with rage. You would kneel to weakness? Valeria answered without standing. I kneel to courage. The words echoed through the valley. Brotherhood soldiers began dropping their weapons. One, then dozens, then hundreds. Years of fear collapsed beneath a single act of compassion. Only Darius refused. His eyes burned with desperation. If she lives, my empire dies. He lunged toward Eliana one final time. Cassian intercepted him before he crossed half the distance. Their fists collided with tremendous force. The impact split the frozen ground. Darius staggered. Cassian did not attack again. Instead, he spoke. It ends here. You can surrender. You can help rebuild what you destroyed. Or you can continue fighting a future you cannot stop. For the first time in many years, Darius hesitated. He looked around the battlefield. His army had surrendered. The Brotherhood had abandoned him. Even the wolves he once commanded refused to stand at his side. Hatred had left him completely alone. The great Alpha slowly released his clenched fist. His shoulders sank. I lost. No, Cassian replied. You chose the wrong victory. Royal guards approached peacefully. Darius offered no resistance. Nearby, Elder Malak attempted to slip quietly through the forest. Mira saw him first. The Elder is running! Captain Orion and several guards surrounded the old conspirator before he reached the trees. Malak lowered his head. I only wanted stability. Cassian looked directly into the elder's eyes. You manipulated destiny. You hid innocent lives. You nearly condemned the true Luna because you feared losing influence. Malak closed his eyes. I believed I was protecting the throne. The throne never needed protection, Cassian answered. The truth did. High Elder Benedict stepped forward carrying the ancient Book of Moon Law. He opened it before every kingdom. The judgment is clear. Darius Ironclaw. You shall spend the remainder of your life rebuilding every village your cruelty destroyed. Elder Malak. You are forever stripped of your office. You will devote your remaining years to caring for the orphan children whose suffering your deception allowed. There will be no executions, no revenge. Justice shall restore life rather than take it. No ruler objected. Even the visiting Alpha Kings nodded in agreement. The sentence reflected the very heart of the moon goddess. As the prisoners were led away, Cassian finally turned toward Eliana. His armor was shattered. Blood covered his hands, shoulders, and face. Countless cuts marked his body. He barely seemed to notice. He crossed the snowy field in complete silence. Thousands watched. No one spoke. When he reached Eliana, the Alpha King of the greatest kingdom on the continent slowly fell to both knees. The movement stunned every witness. Cassian lowered his head. His voice broke beneath the weight of regret. I searched every kingdom for strength. I searched every battlefield for loyalty. I searched every council for wisdom. And all the while, he looked into her tear-filled eyes. You were quietly saving children the rest of us never even knew existed. His shoulders trembled. I judged worth by power. You measured it by mercy. I failed you before we ever met. A tear slipped down Eliana's cheek. She gently lifted his injured hand into both of hers. You came. I almost came too late. But you came, she smiled through her tears. That is where healing begins. Cassian closed his eyes. For the first time since becoming king, the burden upon his soul finally became lighter. Behind them, the children gathered together. Little Mira stepped forward, holding the tiny, wounded wolf pup. She grinned. I think the moon goddess likes happy endings. Laughter rippled through the valley. Even hardened warriors smiled. Above them, thick storm clouds slowly parted. Golden sunlight spilled across the snow. High above the battlefield, an enormous silver wolf, formed from light alone, watched over the reunited family. Its luminous eyes reflected neither judgment nor triumph, only quiet approval. And as every wolf on the continent lifted its voice beneath the brightening sky, everyone present understood that the greatest victory had never belonged to the strongest alpha. It belonged to the woman whose compassion had quietly saved the future long before anyone noticed her name. The war ended with no victory parade, no towering monuments, no songs celebrating conquest. Instead, the people gathered where the battle had begun. Children ran freely across the same snow that had once been stained by fear. Wolves from rival kingdoms rested beside one another beneath the ancient cedar trees. Farmers, warriors, elders, and kings stood together without dividing lines between them. At the center of the valley rose the first moon altar. For nearly 1,000 years, no living soul had witnessed its true awakening. Today, the stone glowed. Soft silver light spread across every ancient rune until the entire sanctuary shimmered beneath the morning sky. Eliana approached quietly. She still wore the same simple blue dress she had worn while caring for the orphan children. The royal attendants had offered jeweled gowns. She declined them all. They were never the reason I came, she whispered. Cassian smiled beside her. "And that is why you belong here." Little Mira walked ahead carrying the once wounded wolf pup, now healthy enough to wag its tail proudly. Behind them came the 14 children from the cottage, then the villagers, then the Alpha Kings, then the Luna Queens. No throne stood upon the altar, only light. High Elder Benedict raised the ancient book of moon law. For generations, kingdoms believed strength alone created worthy rulers. He looked toward Eliana. Today, the moon goddess reminds us otherwise. The sky suddenly brightened. A silver beam descended through the clouds without a single sound. Within the light appeared an ethereal crown formed entirely from moonlight. It floated slowly toward Eliana. No elder touched it. No king presented it. No ceremony controlled it. The moon itself made its choice. The radiant crown settled gently upon Eliana's head. The moment it did, every wolf across the valley lowered its head in perfect unison. Not by command, by instinct. A warm breeze swept across the mountains. Flowers hidden beneath the melting snow quietly bloomed around the altar. The entire valley seemed to breathe. Cassian stepped forward. He did not stand above his queen. He stood beside her. He took Eliana's hand. "From this day forward," he said, "our kingdom will never measure greatness by power alone. It will measure greatness by the lives we choose to protect." Thunderous applause echoed through the valley. The orphaned children surrounded Eliana with joyful laughter. Even Valeria smiled as she placed her warrior's cloak around Mira's shoulders. "You remind all of us," she said softly, "that courage is not determined by size." Far beyond the celebration, Darius Ironclaw and the former Brotherhood members had already begun rebuilding the villages they once destroyed. Stone by stone, home by home. Not because they were forced to fear punishment, because redemption demanded action. As the sun climbed higher, Mira looked up at Cassian. "Will anyone ever hunt children again?" Cassian knelt beside her. "Not while this kingdom remembers why it almost lost its future," the little girl smiled. "So we remember kindness. We always will." And perhaps that leaves one final question. If you had stood where Cassian stood, would you have chosen the strongest queen or the kindest one, even if the entire continent stood against you? Share your answer in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable werewolf romance adventures where love, destiny, and compassion are stronger than any crown.